Right, we're ready to start the cutting out. We are cutting out the back on the fold, the front and the welt pockets and the ties. We are going to cut 2 each. Regardless of what you're cutting out, plan says the best way really is to fold over the fabric so that you have only as much folded over as you need. It's really, really important because that way you save loads of fabric. So we pin that one on and we cut it out and make absolutely sure that the edge of the paper is actually on the very edge of your fabric. Cut it out from the left hand side. Very important thing to learn. You can't always do it. Like here, I just have to go in from the other side. But generally speaking, it's way easier for somebody that is right-handed to cut so the fabric is in your left hand and you can lift the fabric and move it around so that it's easier to maneuver with a scissor. Next, we're going to do exactly the same with the front. You move over the selvage only as much that you get a really nice amount there so you can cut out your piece. You want it very straight. And here you can really see how I'm cutting it with the right hand, and the left hand is just helping me out. It's holding the fabric, it's folding it over, and that makes your life a lot easier. So it's a good habit to get into. And when you get to the little curve down here, just cut with the tip of your scissor. If you cut further back, it's so easy to cut into your fabric. So cut with the tip only. And we can take out the pins. That's it. We've got a pair. This is really important. If you have folded over your fabric, you automatically have a pair. If you're cutting your pocket in a contrast fabric, then I would suggest that you put it so the arrow runs parallel to your selvage. But if it's a linen like mine, where it doesn't really matter which way you go, it does not have a pattern anyway, you can cut it any direction as long as either the weft or with a warp. So I'm cutting out my pocket. I've got 2 of those. And then I'm also going to cut 2 of these lovely ties. You can cut the ties in a different fabric as a contrast if you liked. In this case, I'm cutting it out of my linen. And there are my 2 pieces. And see how much I have left for my 50 centimeters that I bought for the waistcoat. Now with the lining, I'm doing exactly the same. I'm cutting out my back. I make sure it sits exactly on that fold. And then I'm doing the same with the front. Get your front on there. Again, make it very straight. Make sure that whatever pattern you use is actually lining up so that when you take your pins out and you put them opposite each other, the lines where the cars go, in my case, actually goes across. So this is really important when you're using a check or something like that. And there you go. Beautiful pair. Now I'm actually putting together contrast fabrics. So front in the car and back in the blue, or front in the blue and the back is in the lovely car print. So that's something you have to decide. Next, we're going to prep up our interfacing. You will need interfacing for the pocket. Just cut 2 rectangles, which are a little bit bigger than the pocket. And then the other thing is that, of course, in the neckline, the fabric will want to stretch. So one of the things you can do is to just get yourself some of your interfacing remnants, and then you fold them up and you cut them into strips, and the strips can only be like a centimeter, centimeter and a half wide, and 1 wide strip where you're going to attach the cam snaps. And I'm going to iron that to my lining. And the strips that I'm cutting out, I can use to strengthen the edges of my fabrics. When I worked in industry, I used to buy them on the roll, but they're not so readily available from haberdashery shops. So I would just cut myself anything that I've got left over that's just too small for anything else, and keep those in a little box so that you can strengthen your shoulders and your fronts and your necklines, etc. And what we're going to do now is just iron this on. Lovely. And you can go from the other side with a bit of steam as well if you want to. If it doesn't come off anymore, you're good. In my case, I had to go again. Make sure it's securely on there. You do not want it to come off later on. Look at that. Now I'm going to take my little strips, and of course they don't go round the curve, so you will actually have to cut it, but that's easy to do. So you just cut them, they can overlap a bit. That's how they do it in industry. Don't worry about it looking pretty. It's just to give it some more strength there so we don't have stretch in the front. It's a very good method as well when you're making coats for your shoulders. And I work myself all the way around. When I had my first little job, oh my goodness, I did that all day long. Couldn't get more boring, could it? But it's a very good method. The other option you've got when you look at this is very see-through, and when I put it on my linen, you can see the linen through, and because it's a vest which you can wear from both sides, I do not want this. It really is not very nice that it goes so dark. So what I'm going to do for this one, I'm actually going to iron my interfacing over the entire piece. So you've got the two options depending on what color you're using. So you can see here I'm using a full piece of interfacing. Always use a very lightweight interfacing actually. Nothing that is stiff and crinkles in your hands very much. That is a sure sign. Just touch it, and if it's really soft, then it's a good one to use. For my back, I want it to be interfaced just in the neckline, or I can use stay tape. And in this instance, just to show you something different, I'm going to use stay tape. This is readily available from your haberdashery shops, and it's quite a useful thing. But if you are a sewing beginner, sometimes you don't put the stay tape on with enough tension, so you might be better off just interfacing it. Right, and now we're ready to put together our beautiful waistcoat. If you want to put the pockets in, that's your next step, and if you are working without pockets, you just move on to the next step.